Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. For those who know me, I'm Carlos Clanton. I'm the Ward 3 member of the Norfolk City School Board, and I'm happy to have you all joining me for a community conversation and update. My apologies for last Sunday. Wasn't feeling so well, so I had to reschedule it for today, but I appreciate those who are either watching live now or who will watch the recap. And I also want to pause and just express my appreciation for myself and on behalf of my family for all of those who have shown gratitudes of appreciation or sympathy in the loss of my paternal grandmother this past Thursday. I was late to the school board meeting this Thursday because I was with my family and then coming in to do the work of the people, to listen to our community and to take an insight and during our work session. But I just want to say thank you. And I look forward to a great conversation and also updating you all on information and just kind of bringing some transparency to some things here that people may have questions on. So with that, welcome. Glad to have you here. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in here. So let me go ahead and move some things around here and get everybody up to speed. So as I mentioned before, giving a mid-year report, one of the things that I had shared when I came into running for the office of school board was really about providing a report card, providing updates, providing information about what I was doing as a member of the school board. I believe in the old Negro spiritual and respects, let the works that I've done speak for me. Not what I've heard on the street or whatever else, but actually giving you concrete information. And so I'm going to give you the highlights of the areas which are the priorities for which I have that I've been working on. And most importantly, I do have a website. You all have probably seen that information floating there. And I'm also going to have it go across the board here. I look forward for you to tag, get that information there, and share. Really, let me know if there's information or things that you all are expressing. Again, for those who may be watching, if you're watching on Facebook, you're watching on Twitter, or even if you're watching on YouTube, in the comment section, if you have a question, you can type it right in there, and I can actually bring it up. I'll see it when it pops up here and I can be able to address that for you. But as we're coming out of COVID, still trying to find locations. I do have some upcoming community meetings that will actually be there. I've been to a couple of civic leagues. But, back in 2020, when things kind of got really crazy, this was the method for which I wanted to stay connected with the community as we were dealing with safety and other issues. But been very, trying to be very transparent and providing updates and information and on my social media. And as well as the constituent page that I have, which is boardmemberclanton.com. So please sign up. I send out e-newsletters and information, and I just love to be able to engage with you in here. So as far as the priorities, I came in with, it was to prioritize teacher recruitment, training, and retention. The other thing was greater transparency and accountability. My second area was cultivate dynamic partnerships with our community stakeholders, as well as expand early learning and career technical education, CTE, implement and support strategies proven to increase reading literacy, math, proficiency, as well as provide opportunities to support learning for all students. Also, lastly, minimize external barriers to a child's ability to learn, as well as school construction and maintenance. And that's something I added during my tenure. Because as I got on the school board, I really began to look at some of the deficiencies that we had within school construction and maintenance. And so those are the priorities that I have there. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on that today. You'll be able to get that on my website because I really want to get into talking about the educational planning. I wanted to be able to go through that and talk about that and be able to answer any questions or comments that you all may have there. So going on to some of the additional things. Right now, we've got our academic calendar out there for 2022-2023 school year. It is on the NPS website. We are requesting feedback from the community. I'm also going to post this on my website as well as all my social media. Again, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, Instagram, so that we can receive feedback from you all regarding which calendar. I'll tell you, to be transparent, I'm kind of leading the calendar number 2. And I also want to potentially just give a whole full week our teachers and staff for Thanksgiving. So I'll put that out there, but I'll give you all the calendars and, you guys will be able to vote, be able to put information on it, why or why not. Really like to hear from parents how this may potentially impact you as you're planning, but definitely that's out there. We are soliciting feedback from the community for the academic calendar, and we'll be taking up action on that. I think we're anticipating to do that on the 16th. The other thing that you all, for those who know me, I've been speaking about this division itself is in the process of developing our next strategic plan. I think it's for the next 5 years. And so we are having community meetings, and they're doing them via Zoom. And so there are 2 meetings that are coming up. The first one is going to be taking place on the 9th, and the next meeting will be taking place on the 10th. And so you've got one that's at 10 a.m. in the morning, and the one on the 10th is at 6 p.m. So we're attempting to try to reach whether or not you're a parent that works in the evening and you can't get to it, but you may be able to participate during the day. And that's coming up this week. So I encourage you all to get the information. You can go to the website, or you can also use that QR code, which is located on the bottom of the screen there. I'm going to go ahead and actually make this a full screen for you there. So if you want to scan that, you can do that, and that'll actually take you to the site. Or you can type in the npsk12.com/strategic planning, and that'll give you additional information, and it'll take you to that site. So what is a strategic plan? Really, this becomes the strategic direction for the division as we're focusing on where we're going. And in many cases, that's dealing with information that's focused on the internal, so that's staff, that's as far as the instruction, which is setting goals. We know one of the number 1 goals that we want is to make sure that all our schools are accredited, but most importantly, that we're closing achievement gaps and that our students are succeeding, that when they walk out of our doors, when they receive their diploma, that they also are receiving certifications, that they are prepared for college, they're prepared for career, and they're prepared for life. And so we are definitely looking for the information. I think I got somebody who just asked, why not have both meetings at 6 p.m. for maximum input? I think I kind of addressed that. I think what the intention is to have them at different times, because not everybody works 9 to 5. And so you do have some parents and other individuals who can't make it during the day. So you would have that evening meeting. And for those who work in the evenings or at night, you have a day meeting so that we can actually maximize full input. So I hope I answered that for you. And I think that's why they're trying to do that. Okay. So the other thing is that, as you all know, the board took action on our mask mandates, as well as far as, what the governor had put in place about removing masks and making that optional and so forth. And so the only thing that I can say that we're really stressing is that we still want our students to get vaccinated, and to let folks know that that option is there. Military Circle is still a site for that, and that the vaccination is available 5 years and up. So the only thing that we don't have right now is kind of a open spot is for our pre-K. So pre-K 3 and 4, anyone younger than 5 years old don't have a vaccine available to them, but everyone else does have a vaccine available to them. I'm also talking with my colleague, Dr. Noel Gabriel. We're looking at doing a live and bringing some additional information on, because even throughout this pandemic, there's large numbers of students who just are behind on their regular vaccinations, which would normally get you into school. And so I think that being able to kind of express that, kind of reminding folks it's been a little off with this whole COVID thing, what that looks like, and how we might be able to really stress home the creating a safe environment. We can do what we can do on our end, and making sure that our staff members and others are wearing masks and are being able to do social distance. We have tons of PPE in there. So the sanitation, we now have, and I'll talk about that in the ESSER, we've got water filling stations. I know that when we came out of the holiday break in December, over that break, they made sure that all of the water filling stations were placed in there, as well as all of our students have water bottles that were provided by Norfolk Public Schools. And I know that we're now in a new phase of adding additional water filling stations throughout the school, so that individuals can have fresh water. They also have their own water container. Let me see here. How about 2 meetings for each time, since there's not been much notice for these meetings? I will share that back there. I'm not in charge of that particular piece. This is an administration piece. I will share that back with the superintendent about adding some additional meetings in there. And I will tell you this, I'll also report out what the attendance looks like on both of those meetings. That information's been out there, I think is, let me actually go back here, because it's saying the second round. So we've already had a first round of these meetings. And so we're now in a second round of these particular meetings here. But I'll ensure that I send that back. I got a note sheet here that I'm keeping and share with the superintendent if there's an opportunity that we can share another opportunity of another round of meetings, a third round potentially, for both of those times. Okay. All right, so talked about vaccination. The other thing is feedback requested on the fiscal year 2023 superintendent's proposed educational plan and budget. And actually, let me pause there for a second because I want to go back to your question there, Ms. Barnes, that you had down there regarding the meetings. Folks, I want to express that this information is out there. It is on all of our social media. It's on our website. I post the information as a school board member as well. And I also put it on our e-newsletter from myself that goes out there. I encourage you, if you're not following Norfolk Public Schools on social media, I mean, I know that the Rebuild NPS 2030, that was posted almost daily for the last several days that are there. Information is on the front page of the website. Normally we have big pictures across the banner, and there's also information located at the bottom. The division tries to do the best that it can in getting that information out there. I know that we do robocalls, and I know that there's talks right now and work. Actually, I'm going to say talk, but there's work right now to develop an NPS app so that you'll be able to get that on your phone, and we'll be able to send push notifications. But we realize that everybody has a different mode for which they like to get their information from. But this information is out there, and I know it's saying the second round. I'll go back and make sure when I post it out there, I want to make sure that I follow up when that first round went out for community input. I know that we're working with the Valdin Group with the strategic plan, and the objective is to have that plan done for the board to be able to take action on it, if I'm not mistaken, by June of this year. But I'll make sure that I get that out there. But I just want to pause and to say that a lot of the information is out there, but I just want to kind of re-emphasize where it's located and where you can potentially find it. The other thing is about the feedback regarding the board's, the superintendent's fiscal budget. We got this budget book on this coming Wednesday. We're going through it now. I've set up a 2x2 this week with the superintendent to talk about the priorities. What also came with that particular budget was budget book, which gets into the detail. We had a presentation that was given to us. All this information is located on Board Docs, and Board Docs is our it's kind of our depository for the board, which has all the information. The budget that's being proposed this year from all of our lines items is $494,825,736. And that's $354 million approximately is going to go into our general operating fund. And then we have the child nutrition fund, which is another fund. That's all the money for child nutrition for food. That's $22 million. Grants and special programs is about another $34 million. CARES Act funds, these are the ARP dollars, ESSER dollars, and so forth that are coming in. There's about $55 million of that's coming in to support. And that goes back to, we've got a lot to thank Congressman Bobby Scott in the respect. He worked hard along with the House Education Committee to ensure that we got the largest infusion of dollars that we've seen in public education in a very long time. And that's the dollars that will help us to close achievement gaps, to really put the supports in and to support students over the next 3 years as we're coming out of this pandemic. We know that our students have really been stressed, and you'll see a lot of things in here that really focuses on adding some of these additional supports around social emotional with school counselors as well as psychologists. We've increased, there's a salary increase that we're doing. One of the things I've talked about priorities, and I'll be supporting that. We're moving our teacher starting pay from $47,200 to $49,500. And we're also giving our average pay increase to all of our teachers of about 5.8% of all of their salary across the board. We're also increasing our classified employees from $11 to $12, and that will ensuring all of our classified employees have a pay raise and step increase, which will amount to about a 7.5% increase across the board, as well as we're finishing the compensation phase 1. This will be actually implementation of phase 1 of the 4-year plan, and that's going to start in 2023. But I'm going to, because I want to get to the education piece down here. I'm going to post this. This will be on my website as well as on social media this evening. I encourage you all, please take a look at it. It's on the website as well. But I'm going to have a comment section so that you can send me comments and so forth. I do read your comments. I do actively look for feedback from the community. And I do take all those things into consideration when I'm making decisions. I'm do the homework, as they would say. I do a lot of homework trying to make sure that I've got the information. You had me mention about ESSER funds. These are the funds that are, so you've heard about the city having a set of dollars that come from the federal government. Norfolk Public Schools also has $113 million that's also coming to us. And we built the plan out. Every 6 months, the division's going back, reviewing that plan. The website for that is there. I'm actually going to put that in there. I encourage you to check that out, provide feedback to the division. I know that certain groups like NAACP and others have come to the board expressing interest and some concerns. And definitely I'm paying attention to those and following up with that as well. And I encourage you to just post it in the chat for everybody, the link that'll take you directly to that. Also, if you have questions and you want to just send it to the board, you can always do that at tellus@npsk12.com. I'm also placing that in the chat for you. That allows you an opportunity. So if you see something and you want to email it back, that comes to the board clerk. It comes to Norfolk Public Schools, and then we're actually able to get that information and it's sent to us as board members as well. So this is new. The superintendent, I was really excited to hear about this on Wednesday. We thank our employees, our teachers, our staff. It has been challenging, the conditions, the work that they have to do, the amount of time that you all have to spend. It has been a very stressful situation. And so we know that we try to do the best thing that we can. And I'm glad that the superintendent was able to find in some of the funds that we had, carryover funds from last year. And it's going to amount to about $5 million, but it will allow us the opportunity to provide all of our staff members a $2,500 bonus. I received some emails from some individuals going, why did you all take action on it? And the reason why we didn't do that on Wednesday is because Wednesday was a work session. And so that was just to kind of inform us, give us some time to go back as board members and review this information. I will say this publicly, I fully support this. I believe, if I could give more, I would. But I believe that this is a great gesture of appreciation, just to say thank you to our staff and for all the work that they're doing. This is a majority of all of our staff members. I know the superintendent sent out a letter with that as well about which employees, but it's primarily our employees, and she stated reward them for their dedication under extremely difficult circumstances. Also, the timing that we're looking at doing this is on April 8th. This is in advance of them going on spring break, as well as we'll be able to give this to as an equitable proration based on their time that they've been worked, their federal and their taxes and so forth. And then also there's some other details that are kind of in there that's more technical, but I'll post that as well. All of these things that I'm also posting are also available on, hold on, make sure I address this. Yes. So bus drivers are definitely getting a bonus, and I actually pulled that up. That was carryover. I pulled that one out and pulled it in front of me. Trying to figure out where that. But yes, bus drivers, full-time and part-time bus drivers are receiving the bonus. So essentially, everyone who received the bonus last time, including those we came back and added, after bus drivers came in and spoke to that, we will have an opportunity to be able to add that information in there. But all of our bus drivers are receiving that. So what is the calculation of the proposed pay increase? Hold on. Just bring this over here. This is a larger one. What is the calculation of the proposed pay increase for veteran teachers at 10 years in comparison to the new entry level base salary? Many veteran teachers at 10 plus years have a base salary equal to that of the proposed base salary of new teachers. If the pay increase doesn't go through at the proposed rate, as it generally does not, many teachers will leave to work in other systems that already have a significantly higher rate. And I appreciate you bringing that in. That's something that consistently the board talks about. As you know, we get our funding from primarily 3 different sources. That's federal dollars, state dollars, and then the locality. And I have to give credit to the city council. that they have increased every year that we've asked for an increase in dollars. They have essentially tried to meet that. We're kind of at a disadvantage in some respect because all we can do is request as a board. We do not have taxing authority. So when it comes to the General Assembly, the governor has presented a budget regarding, I think it's somewhere around an average about 10% of a pay increase. But that funding is really focused at teachers. So whenever we look at that, then we have to look at the fact that if we do 10% for teachers, then we also have to look at all the other support staff. And then that's when those additional dollars go back and are placed on the locality to fill in the blanks or to make up so that we can be whole on that one. As far as the actual calculation, I don't have that in front of me here, but what I will do is I do have a rolling of everything that's in here, and I will take your question and I will directly address that on my social and as well as find you on Facebook where you're find you on Facebook and actually respond to that. But right now, our efforts is always to try to go in to ask for the necessary amount of dollars so that we can get to where we want to be at and what we're requesting. But when it gets out of our hands and it goes over to the other actual bodies who have the authority to actually what they're going to give to us. So right now we're basing this on what the governor has proposed in their budget. We'll see crossovers occurred. General Assembly has about another week that's going on. We'll see how that shakes out as far as the actual revenue and what that will look like. And then also we have to send this entire budget book over to City Council by April 1st. And when that gets over there, then it's in the hands of City Council. And so I encourage for you to express and reach out to your members of council for them to fully fund the school board's budget. And we did that last year. We pretty much got everything fully funded on the operational side. The only thing we had a small reduction in was on the capital improvement. But it was a great increase from the $3 million that we've been receiving a number of years to just operate the school division. But I will definitely get back to you, Ms. Bean, and I appreciate the question. So I'm going to come out of that one. I'm going to transition now because I want to spend a bulk of time because I know a lot of you all are really interested in the educational planning component. So I'm going to come out of that one there and add that particular slide in here so that I can go through that information. But as I'm bringing that up, I want to make sure that I kind of address a couple of things. I've been sitting in meetings. I've been listening attentively. I've been taking notes. Couple things. One, nothing has been decided. Nothing has been decided by the board as a whole or by myself as an individual school board member. The only thing that has been decided was to move a plan, which you see here, from off a shelf and to get it in front of the community so that we can begin to have conversation about this so that we have enough time if we decide to move in a direction or if we don't move in a direction that the administration can have enough time to begin to go back and be working on something else. Nothing has been decided. The timeline that I'll talk about in here in this respect looks for us to make a decision on the 16th. Myself, individually as a board member, I'm either not going to support some things or I'm going to ask for additional time to ensure that we fully have communication from the community and input. I've been reaching out to our civic leagues, been a little disconnect with the whole pandemic situation, but I will say this, I've reached out to Dr. Guns over at 2nd Cavalry. I've also reached out to both civic leagues that are primarily in the Lindenwood and the Villa Heights area because I really do want to create either a Zoom meeting to be able to have a more intimate conversation, listen to some additional things there. I'm not just listening in a respect of just going through the motions. I really do want to hear. One of the concerns that I haven't been hearing when I'm talking about is from parents. I've heard from some things from certain parents. But as far as parents in the specific Lindenwood, I've heard some things and I've taken some things back, and I'll talk about those as I go through here. But just note that nothing has been decided and that we are very much engaged. I, as a board member, because I'm not speaking on behalf of the entire board, I may be the vice chairman, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the board. But as an individual school board member, I have not made a decision one way or the other than we need to move and get something in front of the community to begin to have community conversation and engagement so that if we don't go in a particular direction or we need to make modifications, we have the ability to do that. So this is a presentation that was submitted and sent out there to everyone. This plan is actually the planning of this particular plan was given to us back in 2019, 2020. school year. And it goes through here. I'm actually going to bring this full up so that you all can, I'm going to bring myself down. And so you can see a little bit bigger here. But the steering committee, community dialogue that began doing that. And honestly, we were in the process of beginning to go full force with the community engagement when you all know really COVID began to hit. We thought we were going to have 2 weeks shutdown of school. And then the governor came back and said there was going to be no more public in-person instruction for the remainder of the year. So this particular process in itself got placed on the shelf because we were beginning to really start to figure out how are we going to address the educational concerns. And that's when it came up that we realized that there was a great deficiency or disparity, and I'm going to say disparity between those who had access to devices and internet and those who did not. And that's when we had those paper packets going out. And I also have great credit to my superintendent who went in there. And we'll talk a little bit more. Also, I'll be sharing Drive for Five out with everybody. This is our superintendent's plan and how, what really over the last 2 years, what we've been doing to address the needs of our students and staff members here in Norfolk Public Schools. But that kind of just tells you, we had started this plan a while back. And that original plan actually focused on some other different options. And so when we came back and we began, and if you look at it, March 23rd really coincides with when we came back into in-person learning. We started to roll that in. If you all remember, we started with the lower grades, and then we went to middle school, and then we went to high school. Let me see here. So you've got another one here. So why are these community conversations not pre-planned? Seems like just in reaction to public outcry just before the vote and last minute, still not delaying the date of the vote. So let me just say, I'll speak for myself. This is not a reaction to anything. I've been doing live sessions, information about COVID and so forth. There's a steering committee. There is an actual, we've got a consultant who has been having planning meetings and putting this information out here. It's clearly right there in front of you. So as far as whether or not you have a parent that's in school or not in school, that's where I've kind of had some concern and shared with our superintendent. How do we get broader communication out to the community to have these meetings? And it's not to just a specific community. And again, I apologize if you feel like it's in reaction to that one, but I will say that it's a mixture of both. When you think that you have one method, whether or not it's a survey, whether or not information being placed on, talked about at our meetings, at our retreats. We had a full half of our meeting on the 4th of February to talk about this. So this is when the new plan was presented to us back in February. So I will say, yes, there's a mixture of that. When individuals come out and say they need more communication, there are members of our board who are pushing for that, who are pushing for not just the public comment, but doing what I'm doing here today to have communication and have that information shared with us. So as far as the 16th is concerned, yes, in the respect, I sit as the vice chairman of the board as well. But I do not, there is a 7-member board. I don't speak for the entire board in that respect. And so I know for myself personally, there are some questions that have come up. I am reviewing. I've been very much reviewing, not just what the plan itself has had there, but also the historical context of our communities, but also the challenges. And I will say that in the respect that when it comes to Lindenwood, this is not something that I am that I take lightly. And I'll get to that particularly. As a matter of fact, let me do this because I see some questions that are coming in. Let me get through this piece and I'm gonna come back so I can make sure I get into in-depth because there's some stuff I want to talk about here. So the recommendation of the plan talks about rebuilding the oldest facilities in the worst condition. And so Moria High School is in one of the worst conditions right now. And that's about $138 million to $150. And because of inflation and everything else that's going on right now, we're on probably that latter side of $150 million. And then we also have up to 3 schools are also being planned. 3 elementary schools are being planned, and that includes a new Granby Elementary School, which is about $22.6 million, a new Jaycox Elementary School, which is $30.1 million, and as well as Norview Elementary School, which is about $26.3 million. And then we get into the recommendations that have come back. And I want to show this. Now, when we received this original recommendation to us, that was back in June of last year. And the original recommendation, particularly when it came to Lindenwood, I'll talk about that when we originally received that in June. So one of the things we have in is Tower Park Elementary School. We received a letter from the city manager on behalf of the city. And I will actually share that letter that was addressed to our superintendent. And it was requesting the potential of having Tower Park Elementary School given back to the city by the end of 2023. And with that particular plan, what it's calling for is to be able to give Tower Park back to the city so that the city of Norfolk can then move the old Hunton YMCA from its current location to the location of where Tower Park Elementary School sits right now, and to create a retention pond in that area. Now, let me also stress this. I'm on the school board. I am not part of planning. I am not part of city council. I don't do ordinances. Our responsibility is dealing to the instruction and the education and the facilities that we have. So in order for the city of Norfolk to actually receive land or a school, the board actually has to take 2 votes. They have to take one to say that they're going to give a school back. And then the board has to come back and actually take a vote on a resolution, which then deeds the land back to the city of Norfolk for them. The other piece was about Madison's secondary alternative education program. It was about relocating. And this is the one that I want to stress out. The original plan from Madison that was presented to us back in June of 2021 called for Madison to actually be relocated over to Rosemont, if individuals remember. We started getting some emails and feedback back from community regarding that proposal. And so we also needed to have a public hearing. And so I actually made the motion for us to have the public hearing. And we ended up delaying that because based on just the information that we were receiving from parents and so forth around the original plan, which was presented in June. Again, we were scheduling, looking to do public hearings in August. We delayed that. And actually what we're doing now, the public hearing that we have is actually the public hearings that we actually authorized back in August that have been delayed. Because really the thinking was we need to go back, see if there were some other options. And then based on that, we also had Easton has kind of been sitting in there. Easton Preschool is in a facility, again, which is dated, old. And then what you realize is that we started moving students out of Fairlawn Elementary School into a new program over at the old Lake Taylor Middle School, which is now Lake Taylor School. So the plan was to move the students out of Easton and to move them into Fairlawn, which would then create a pre-K center on that side of the city, and also to get them into a much newer facility. Now, Lindenwood Elementary School. Lindenwood was originally slated back on the proposal that we got back in June to actually be closed. So yes, it's true in that respect that the original proposal back in June of 2021 talked about closing Lindenwood Elementary School. It also talked about moving the students at Lindenwood Elementary School to 3 different locations, moving them to Willard, moving them to James Monroe, and then also moving them to Taylor Elementary School. Again, that proposal that was submitted to us and presented to us after feedback was that this was not the administration went back because really what was the main concern that was coming out of that one beyond closing the school was that it was going to create another center of concentrated poverty by moving some students from Lindenwood Elementary School and then moving them into James Monroe. And so what's not presented in here and information that's out there is that what we're getting out of out of James Monroe, and I'll just kind of start there. James Monroe does have capacity, and what we're looking at James Monroe is being able to create mixed income pre-K classes. There's no pre-K center on that side of the city, and so this gives us an opportunity to utilize a building that's underutilized and to create more opportunity around early childhood education. So the recommendations moving forward on this is that, again, the oldest facilities, and in the current budget that's been presented to us, the city of Norfolk is taking on debt so that we can begin to do that. And they're going to be doing that over the next 10 years, debt so that we can do school construction. One of the other things, too, is that when we sell or go, hold on, let me change that correction. We don't sell, but when we give land back to the city, It's kind of a gentleman's agreement in the respect that the city, and I know that Councilman Smeagol, who also is one of our on Norfolk Public Schools side, has been really pushing that when funds are provided or received from the sale of the land, that those funds be allocated for school construction. And so there's a great opportunity in that some of these land spaces that we would give back to the city, and whatever the city does, if they sell them, we would be able to receive funding that would help support and speed up the additional construction of other school facilities that are there. So that plan that's been talked about is not changing. And that's where we're moving at right now with that, as long as, we've passed the budget and there's been discussions with the city. So let's get into the recommendations on consolidation. So Tower to Park, one of the things that we look at, that Tower to Park and PB Young are kind of like, as you would say, one school in two different locations. PB Young actually has the pre-K program all the way up to second grade, and Tower to Park has third grade to fifth grade. And I'm just going to preface this, regardless of where you are on the St. Paul's quadrant, whatever your politics are, maybe with that or your opinion, the school board does not have a direct say so in that. Yes, and one of my colleagues has raised the point that within that plan that they submitted for redevelopment, that we are the educational leads. And yes, we do have individuals who are sitting at the table with that. But we aren't, as far as where people live, that's not an order. We don't create ordinances for that. We can create attendance boundaries. And that's one of the other things I have written down there, because I've heard members of the community say they want community schools, but then also the same statement say that they want social economic diversity. And that's a challenge, and that's something that we're going to have a larger conversation about. And I'm looking to continue that conversation well beyond this here. And I encourage anyone who has not, there's a book that was written by Dr. James Ford along with another professor. Dr. James Ford is at Norfolk State, but it's called Elusive Equality, Desegregation and Resegregation in Norfolk Public Schools. It is a history on how we got to where we are today. And I've been reading it intently. Someone had made the mention, I've read this book before, but I'm going back to just make sure that I'm really understanding how our communities ended up the way that they are. And I've had some individual conversations with individuals as well. But as you can see here, we're going to add 2 new, 3, as well as the pre-K classes. At James Monroe, I mentioned that. There's not going to be any modification with Tower to Park. We're going to actually, the proposal is to move that school's population over to Ruffner and to create a new 3-8 program. I asked at our work session on the 4th why we were moving to do that, started and actually having this conversation in the month of March. And it was so that, and it was replied back to us that they wanted to have at least an entire year to be able to, to plan. And to look at some of the challenges that occurred at Southside STEM, and then also some of the positive things with the 1-year closure that they received at ADL, the Academy of Discovery at Lakewood, so that they can create a new program there. The thing with Ruffner is that Ruffner seats about, and we'll talk about it, seats about 1,100 students. And when you look at Tower to Park, there are about 170 kids in that one building. And as they continue to do relocation and so forth in that area, the student population is going to drop as well. So that's that particular piece on that one. Let me get here other. So on the Ruffner piece, so you got 781. This is what you could potentially look at, the 3-8 students. And what we're looking at is also being able to create choice. So with the new program, also creating a choice program that students around the city would be able to opt in as well. Right. So this is the Lindenwood consolidation proposal that's here. Let me bring this up here so I can fully see it. This was strictly done on mapping. Again, as I mentioned before, in the month of June of 2021, we got an original proposal that actually had attendance boundaries going to 3 different schools. Now it's showing attendance boundaries going to 2 separate different schools. My own concern, and I've been hearing and I've been listening, I do have concerns regarding the actual distance from parents. The nearest school outside of Lindenwood would be J. Cox Elementary School. And then you look at where Willard Model is, and then you look at where Taylor, and then James Monroe. And so I think someone mentioned about 2.6 miles And then also the concerns, I work in human services, but also the concerns about parents being able to get to their school, to be able to meet their kids and and being able to get them if there were emergencies and so forth. The other thing too is also making sure that we have the right capacity. And when I talk about capacity, is making sure that the schools are sized right. I know that we look at a classroom. I've actually visited Willard. I went with Dr. Gabriel, and we actually walked through and looked at the classrooms. And so these are questions that I'm taking back, just some of the things that I've been really paying attention to see whether or not it's even viable. So again, as I mentioned before, none of this is done. And there are still questions. There's 2x2s that are occurring. And we're still speaking with the superintendent regarding these items here. So again, this talks about the Larimore Elementary School students and how that was decided. It's really with the river waterway that's there, and as well as the cemetery creates a boundary as to where they would have been potentially going. Now this talks about the consolidation Tower Park. It just focuses on the elementary school. None of the attendance boundaries for middle school are impacted at all. It is just strictly focused on the elementary. This talks about the FCI, which is really how they measure the viability of a building. And so I also want to kind of address, because it was something I took down on a note, when the comment was made about undersize of the school. Student population is about 230, 260. The sweet spot that they mentioned is about 350 kids. So I just want to reiterate that the annex of the building wasn't torn down to make some type of intentional decrease in capacity. Even with the tearing down of the annex, it had nothing to do, the school it can still fit the kids that they have there. What we're saying is that the size, when we look at 350 million, not 350 million, when you look at 350 students inside a building, that's what you want to kind of have. Lindenwood, regardless of the annex coming down or not, it would have still been too small for what we were looking at, a viable sweet spot of a school. That notwithstanding, honestly, the size of the school too much isn't really bothering me. It's what's happening inside of the school. And that's been one of my major concerns. If you all know, I've been involved with Norfolk Public Schools for a number of years. And one of the things that I have is a 2008 report card. This is a report card, and back then, Dr. Stephen Jones was still superintendent. And in there, and I'll make sure I'm going to take a copy of this and put this out there, but it has all of our elementary schools and where all of our elementary schools fall on the spectrum as far as accreditation. And in 2008 and 2009, every elementary school in Norfolk Public Schools is fully accredited except for Lindenwood. Lindenwood was accredited with warning. And it's been the thing that honestly a lot of us have been looking at. It's like, what is going on? It has nothing to do with our kids, nothing to do with our children and with their ability to learn. And so it really goes back in there, hard to staff, having consistency. It is a very transient school. So, if we are to keep Lindenwood there, my mind goes into what really needs to be done intentionally to support the students in Lindenwood. And I will say that I'm very excited to hear the passion of many members from the community. I just want that passion, if Lindenwood does stay there, to continue. And for that passion to be present in that school and to support those students, because it's going to take not just what's happening in the instruction during the day, but what many individuals have done and seen with the hearts and the aspirations of those students who are there, how we can support. So as you kind of see, the timeline is there. I'm gotten down to the end of this. I do want to address questions that you all have there. So let me come out of this, bring myself back up here, and let me scroll back up so I can make sure I didn't miss anybody. All right. So I'm going to go back to Ms. Barnes. Is there any talk of using ESSER funds to bring our existing teachers current on their step pay? So it's just like this. So ESSER funds are kind of a one-time insurgent of funds from the federal government. So what you don't want to do is to build a budget or put money in there that isn't sustainable. And so that's the other piece that we have to look at, is that we would love to, if we could, throw that in there, make that money, bring it back up. But then after 3 years, we would be in a situation, if we don't have a continuation of federal dollars, or we don't have that money coming from the state or the locality to fill in that gap, we'd just be creating another problem that would really put us in a bad position. So no, I know that those funds haven't been for that. We are able to use some of those. We've been using the carryover funds to create bonuses and so forth. But I know that there is we've been looking at the plan, we've been looking at this, but also we created stipends, and that's something I've asked the superintendent to particularly look back at. We created stipends for hard to staff schools. And when you look at Lindenwood would be one of those schools, and there are many different schools. We have a challenge across the entire division, but you want to have individuals in a school like Lindenwood who really want to work with students who you got to really get back up. This challenge, we had students that were behind, and we've had long-term subs, but those students all of our students need qualified teachers in there and not a long-term sub. So what things can we do to incentivize and get individuals to want to go into a challenging environment such as Lindenwood and other schools to really get the wraparound services and supports to help bring those children up to speed and to close the achievement gap. So let me see what else I got here. Got that one. Make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, somebody that one. Let's see, Ms. Barnes, you got another one here. Is there any talk of using? Oh, I think okay, I missed that one. So Tracy Beckford, are any of the members of the planning committee for Ward 3 or are these just internal stakeholders? Are any of the members of the planning committee from Ward 3 or just internal stakeholders? When you mention internal planning committee, are you talking about the actual educational plan that's been presented? The educational plan itself actually had a steering committee, which was across the cross section of the entire city. And when I sat at the meeting that was at Lindenwood Elementary School 2 weeks ago, there was a member from the NAACP who was also a member of the steering committee. So I know it's probably down there. I see some other comments. I'm gonna come back to that one. Let's see here. Why pour so much money into Maury? That school has already received a lot of money. So, all right. So let's just talk about it here. You're right. Maury High School has had 4 renovations. The last renovation in Maury High School was done in 1989-90. I was a student at Maury High School, attended Maury High School in 1994. Brand new, pristine building. The unfortunate piece is that when they redid Maury the last time, they did not replace the 100-year-old brick in Maury High School. And so over the last couple of decades at Maury High School, the brick, which is supposed to keep the water from coming out, has actually been acting like a sponge. And so if you walk inside Maury High School, it looks like something out of Alien right now. We have plumbing issues. We've got things that are separating. We got stuff that's growing in between the walls. And I remember being at the Maury High School for its 100th centennial anniversary. And Maury High School on that Saturday, and on that Sunday, the corner portico of the school actually fell off. If you drive by Maury High School, you will actually see, if you look hard enough, look at every window, there is a brace in every window to ensure that no bricks and things don't fall off on students. And about 3 years ago, students were in the auditorium at Maury High School, and about, I think maybe about 1 to 2 minutes after they finished a study hall out of there, a large section of the plaster roof came tumbling down on top of all of the seats that were there. The other piece is that we cannot operate off of, we need 5 high schools. When we look at the capacity of all of our schools, we need to have a viable Maury High School, Booker T. Washington, Norview. All of those schools need to be there in order to keep the student population as comfortable as possible. You don't want, I know in some areas you have really, really large high schools, but we don't have that. And in some cases, we have certain schools which are really pushing the brink of their capacity level. But it's not about pouring money to a school. We really need to keep that school viable. And I also will say this, many folks will go in and we identify who've been around here for a long time. Well, Maury is a predominantly white school and this and that. And when you look at the student population, Maury High School is not. Just because it's on the west side of the city, the majority of its population are that of students of color. So we want to make sure, just like what we would do with Lindenwood or anywhere else, it doesn't matter about the name of the school or where it's located at, but the students who are in that building, our staff members who are in that building each and every day, we want to make sure that we provide them a safe and secure learning environment where they don't have to fear about whether or not something catastrophic is going to happen. And I also will say this about with Maury High School: those beautiful steps on the front of the school, those steps at the front of Maury High School are actually being braced up right now. So we've got to take some decisive action with the high school. And unfortunately, high schools cost more as we start looking at technology and just the sheer square footage. It's going to cost more. And the more that we delay, the more money it's going to cost. And so we're trying to get moving on these projects here as well as to bring in others. Let's see. Says that Madison received 600 students last year. Service 600 students a year. How did Lindenwood facility be large enough? I can tell you right now that 600 kids were not in Madison at any one given time. On an average, there's about 170, 160 students. And right now with the pandemic, that number, when we first came back, was like 30, 40. And I've actually been over to Lindenwood, and that number now is somewhere around 70 students there in that actual capacity and in that building. And so they actually have 5 core teachers and 3 CTE teachers that support all of those grade levels. And that's a whole nother conversation with me with Madison, because I'm a strong proponent about restorative justice and as well as alternative learning settings for students who have made mistakes, so that we can get them back on track and get them and to really break that school to prison pipeline. That is what Madison is all about. It's ensuring that we can reach kids before they really make some really bad decisions, and then we can't reach them anymore. And so I will say that whether or not that's at Lindenwood or wherever else, I'm going to definitely support kids. And I will also address, I remember writing that down. I'm not going to support putting kids in a warehouse or an industrial district. Kids who are at Madison, in my opinion, have already been through enough trauma, and to really place upon them additional trauma in the respect of where their environment is. We don't have no idea sometimes what kids are going through and what their environments are, and particularly when they get home. School, in many cases, are the only places that they have that structure. And so a lot of that bubbles up. But I am very much pushing in this budget to ensure that we're putting additional resources for the staff and also programming, because we need it. Our kids have suffered a lot through this pandemic. We have all suffered a lot through this pandemic. But I will never support placing any of our students in an industrial area or anything that does not demonstrate the love and care, regardless of the mistakes that they've made, to ensure that they can get back on track and that we can ensure that they leave out of Norfolk Public Schools prepared to enter the workplace or go into the military or wherever they may be, but that they can be productive citizens and great products of Norfolk Public Schools. So I just want to address that. I don't remember who said it, doesn't really matter to me, but I just want to say that I will never support putting kids in an industrial environment. And I also express, and I understand about the concerns about certain kids in communities and with residential. I take all that in consideration, and I've been reading and I've been writing, and as well as when I get my 2x2 to be able to talk about that, finding whether or not that's Lindenwood or not, or it's another location. Again, as I said, no decision has been made about where the schools. It's only a plan so that we have something to talk about. And I appreciate the community giving us feedback, because we're going to go back, and if we need to make changes, we'll do that. But please, please, please know that no decision has been made. I know that there's something on the board as far as the 16th, but we have to put stuff on our agenda so that we can plan. It's called agenda planning. We may get to the 16th and none of this is taken up at that particular time, but we've got to plan so that the board knows what's coming up and so that the staff knows what's coming up so that they can prepare to get information out. We got here, has remained consistent in the last 4 years. No, it has not. The staff at, I have been to Madison, and it has not. Madison actually lost almost half of its staff. So that's not true. So I'll just put it out there, and I'll put what those numbers look like. So let's see. What are the reasons the school is not accredited? Well, until we got into the pandemic, if you all remember, SOLs was like it was the gold bearing standard that we had in the state to determine accreditation. The challenge with that is that if you already have a hard, challenging environment where you don't have highly qualified teachers in all of the classrooms. I'm not saying that Lindenwood doesn't have them, they do, but we do have long-term subs that are subbing in at Lindenwood. And again, as I'm showing you even here from this 2008 report, it is showing where Lindenwood, it's in that red right down here, is not fully accredited like the other students. So this is not something new that's come here. You got to make sure you got the teachers that are in there. We've got to make sure we get the additional supports, whether that's tutoring, after school programs. These are all things that are on the table. Honestly, now I'm like, if we keep a Lindenwood, we can't just keep it for a structure. We've got to figure out how do we support and increase the academics success of our students, and that we got some additional supports around there. There's even been some talk. I mean, I know Norfolk Public Schools, I mean, as a board, we're not in favor of charter schools or public charter schools or may be down there. But if it means that we can approach this school, this community, or any of our schools with a different out-of-the-box approach to support children, I will always give consideration of that. There's no hard red line for me. At the end of the day, I am student-centered. That means doing everything that we possibly can. Our students are relying upon our parents and our school board members, our teachers, everybody, to make sure that we make good decisions that are in support of them. So I got him there. So is there any plan to bring the step pay back to current? Want to affect the retirement pay? Yes, we're trying to get that. That's where the report is. And I'm making note of that now, Ms. Barnes, to share all the reports that are out there so that you can have a full understanding of where we are. And if there's additional questions that you may have outside of that report, I'll be more to do a follow-up and to be able to share those. So I'm putting that down there. Okay, step pay. All right, steering committee. All right, the facility plan. I'll make sure I got everybody in here. Okay. For over a decade, teachers have been forced to retire on the wrong step, meaning retirement with far less income they are entitled to. I understand. I was there in Norfolk Public Schools, but just to kind of remind everybody, we went through a recession in 2008. And I know that at that particular point in time, key programs were cut. Step programs were frozen. And that was to maintain staff. That was maintaining individuals and make sure they had a job. So some hard decisions. I was not a part of the school board at that point in time, but I know that hard decisions had to be made in order to ensure that people had jobs and that we were able to support our students the best way we can. But that all results back to 2008 from the recession. And unfortunately, we don't have a tax base like a Virginia Beach or Chesapeake or Northern Virginia and some of these other localities where you can increase and be able to recover faster. We've been, unfortunately, we got to get more funding. And when we say fully fund, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia says that the Commonwealth of Virginia is responsible for fully funding public education. And when you look at our lottery funds and so forth, a lot of that money is supplanted other places. It's kind of this moving around stuff, but it's not moving the needle. And that's one of the things that we've got to make sure that we get. Let's see, had 3 more questions. Who was this? In the post you did not address. I'm sorry, I may have missed those. It's all kind of scrolling up. Let's see, let me go back. All right, let's see, I've got a Mr. Smith. Why is it that Madison is asked to occupy the building and the population of students is larger than the building can hold in Lindenwood? Well, that number that was placed up there is not correct. I actually visited Madison on this past Monday, and Madison maybe has 70 kids that are in the building in their current location. So that 600, whatever number, I actually will go back to the website and look at that. That's not an accurate number. I actually got a full report on that one. And I will say, let me see here, because we're a little bit over the 6 o'clock time that I allocated here. Let's see, meant for staff, a few questions, let's see, but when? Yeah, you're right, Ms. Barnes. The school has been fully staffed for the last few years, last 2 years, at least I know. Principal Holland had done a great job and working with he had, building a staff support there. But anyone will tell you in the education realm, it takes about 3 years to really see the gains in any plan that you put in place there. And so there are some things that which I can't get into because that may potentially get into personnel stuff, but everything from who's in that building, who's leading that building, all of those things, we are definitely, I know for myself as a board member and the Ward 3 representative where Lindenwood is in that ward, I'm looking at how do we get that. I want all schools in Ward 3 and throughout the city to be fully accredited. And so this is where that whole equity versus equality type of thing goes in there, making sure that we take the necessary resources in this budget and every budget that we do every year, that they're being placed in the right locations so that we can get the greatest results back to support students. I'm going to go ahead and answer this last question here. Anybody that I didn't get here, I'm going to go back later tonight. I've got another thing that I've got to do here, and I will go back and place those responses. I'm going to create a on my website there, so I'll have from this this actual meeting here your questions and so forth, and I'll add some additional responses and links. I'm an individual who manages by fact, and so if I hear something, I'm not mad because you put something out there. It just that's what your perception or what you've gotten from information, and it's incumbent upon me to make sure that I give you the facts and information. And so I appreciate those. I'm definitely going to put this information up here. But when would you bring a new teacher at the current rate, veteran teacher, you have a major retention issue? It's a catch-22 because at the same time, our competing school divisions are taking not taking students, but they're taking teachers with a higher pay. And you all know, and I could get into a whole thing about where retirement, and in many cases, I've seen on these dockets where teachers have left, gone and thought the grass was green on the other side, and they've come back to Norfolk Public Schools. But just know that this step, the step pay increase is a major issue that I know that this board, I know for myself and other colleagues have brought it up, that we want some definitive time. When will this happen? But a lot of that really goes back into making sure that we have the necessary resources. Let's see here. So, Ms. Barnes, I honestly can't get into that. It would be a personnel issue. So I can't address that here on the live publicly here. But what I will say, and I just want to make sure that I get for the last couple minutes here, please share information there. I'm going to put on the banner here my contact information. You can contact me. This is my cell phone number for the school board. You can text me, you can call me at this number, as well as my email address for the school division. I'm also going to bring back in here, there's a couple of things that I wanted to share before I left for this afternoon, and that was to share information regarding a scholarship opportunity. I am a member of one of the greatest fraternities in the world with Alpha Alpha fraternity, but we have a $5,000 scholarship. So if you know of a senior in the community here in Norfolk who it's an essay competition opportunity, it's $5,000 for 4 years. It's a $20,000 scholarship. I ask that you help me spread the word, get that out there, that are deserving young man. We are really focused on getting men of color to go and continue education. And so also school board advisory committees, that information is on my website as well. I encourage you to take an opportunity to really just go ahead and to serve and to be able to support us in that respect. Those committees serve to give additional information, perspective. And so I appreciate you all for hopping on. I wanted to do about an hour today. As I mentioned, I got something else I've got to do here, but don't stop the conversation. You've got my contact information there. Please text me, call me. If you're not following me on social media, I'm very responsive. Shoot me a messenger, put an information out there. If you hear something, hey, this is what it, excuse me, I've heard this, or is this what it is? That's what I'm here for, so that I can share information with you. Again, I love to engage in communication. If I don't believe something is right, I'm going to say it. I'm going to back it up with information there. But more importantly, I need to hear from you all. And I really want to hear from parents. I've heard from a lot of folks there, but I really want to hear from Lindenwood parents. So if you have any parents, I know I came to the parent meeting. I've shared my business card and information. I really want to hear, because things like the distance and being able to get there, those are general concerns. I mean, and that's they're viable concerns. And as well as the environment. Oh, I also want to say that no teachers are being fired in this. That all of our teachers will be able to either they follow their students with that particular program or not, if we went with a move. Again, I am, as far as where I am right now, I am still taking in the information. I'm going to do what I feel is in the best interest of kids, but most importantly, also supporting our parents, because at the end of the day, they're my customer. Each one of you as parents, taxpayers in the city are customers. And our students are ultimately our product, and making sure that we do what's in the best interest for them and figuring out how do we support our students. That's the ultimate thing for me. It's not about anything of the stuff that I've heard, public rumors. We're not trying to get, the building is not going anywhere. Lindenwood is either going to be a building with current students of Lindenwood, or it was be proposed as being a building that was going to have alternative programs. There is no plan about giving a building back to the city of Norfolk so that they can build condos or anything like that. I know, I hear it. That's not happening. At the end of the day, that site is going to support kids, support our students, whether that's a current student body there or the proposal they're talking about with Madison. But ultimately, I'm listening. Continue to share your concerns with me. I'm listening. Just know that. And so with that, I appreciate you all coming out today and sharing with me. Let's see. I see you, Ms. Barnes. I see you on that one. And like I said, you all will know. You know where I am. I will be very decisive. I don't think that it's very, you all have seen me for the last almost 4 years here. When I do something, I do it with finality and understanding and doing my homework and listening. If you all want me to come out to a civic league or a church meeting or just a couple group of your neighbors, I am willing to come out and have a conversation. I am also taking back. I do express some of the frustration of ensuring that when we do something from the administration level, that we do it with intention, that the administration is out there to support community engagement, and just as much as what we're doing as school board members. So I've heard that. I'm taking that down there. And again, if there's any questions that I missed, I will definitely make sure that I take time to go back and address those. Thanks again. And thank you for all you do to Tracy and supporting our students. Everybody, enjoy your Sunday. Thank you again. Let's continue the conversation. Continue to reach out to me and enjoy the rest of your time there. All right. Bye.